Hello, BookTube. This is Weekly Reads. I've had a really good reading week this week. I read 12 volumes of manga over the course of the weekend, and while I did have one bail, I did have two bail redemptions and read some really good poetry. So let's get going. So the 12 volumes of manga. So the past few weeks, I have devoted my weekends to reading 12 volumes of a specific series. It started off with Black Clover by Yuki Tabata, and then last week, Naruto by Masashi Kishimoto. This week, I read various volumes in 6 series. So I'm not going to be as in depth in my coverage, except to say that I really enjoyed all of them. I started with the most recent release of My Hero Academia by Kohei Horikoshi. This is a volume 38. My Hero Academia is a manga series inspired by American superhero comics. It's set in a world centuries in the future in which most of the population have superpowers called quirks. One of the few people who do not have superpowers is a young man named Izuku Midoriya. However, he admires superheroes immensely. He wishes to be a superhero. And one day, an act of bravery inspires his favorite superhero, All Might, the top hero in Japan. And this act inspires All Might to take Izuku on as his apprentice. And All Might grants Izuku his power, his quirk, called One for All, which can be passed on and accumulate. This allows Izuku to go to UA, the premier high school for aspiring superheroes in Japan, and Izuku and his classmates, including a former bully of his named Bakugo, begin their training to become superheroes. Izuku and his classmates are becoming superheroes at a very perilous time, while the presence of All Might has largely driven the villains underground. They're beginning to make a comeback under the leadership of a young man named Shigaraki, who is the apprentice of All for One, the dark progenitor of One for All, and All Might's arch rival. This volume 38, it takes place during the final arc, where the heroes and villains have gone to war in a devastated Japan. The heroes are trying to defeat the villains and to prevent All for One from reaching Shigaraki, who, if they do kind of come together, All for One will fully possess Shigaraki and become unstoppable. This volume largely presents sort of the turn where, for some of this arc, the villains have largely held the upper hand, even if the heroes have been managing to hold them off. But here, the marquee fights that will ultimately turn the tide are being fought. So this volume begins the tease of the fight between the Todoroki family. Two of the members, Endeavor, who's the new top hero of Japan, and his son Shoto against Endeavor's oldest son, Toya, who is a villain. Also, Rady about to take on Toga, who's disrupting the battlefield, and the volume ends with All Might confronting All for One in what promises to be a real interesting fight. So this was really fun. Let me show you some images real quick from here. I won't show you the cliffhanger ending, though. Yeah. So that was My Hero Academia, Volume 38. I also read 2 volumes of Choujin X by Sui Ishida, Volumes 2 and 3. So, much like with My Hero Academia, Choujin X is a superhero-inspired fantasy series, except in this setting, which is a more clearly alternate reality to this one. There are no superheroes in that sort of American superhero way. There are people who have superpowers, either born with it or acquire it artificially, and they do affect history and society in a grander or lesser scale. So the main character of Choujin X is a young man named Tokyo, who is, I guess he's average, and he's best friends of a young man named, I'm blanking on his name. See if there's a, no, there isn't. I think it's Azuma, who is a bit of a vigilante. And they are injected with a compound that grants them superhuman abilities that turn them into Choujin. Tokyo develops powers first, and his powers are vulture-like. His face assumes a sort of a vulture's face, but with sort of a more mask-like quality. And he has various super abilities. And later in the 3rd volume, Azuma develops powers himself. So in the 2nd volume, it begins with Tokyo trying to escape another Choujin who's been hired to test him and to kidnap him or kill him, who takes the form of ultimately a gigantic snake. Tokyo and I'm blanking on her name. Are fighting this snake Choujin when they are rescued by 2 other Choujin who are members of a group of Choujin who basically work to kind of work together to learn how to control their abilities to be sort of in society, although some of them do take on the roles of sort of enforcers or to fight rogue Choujin. So, oh yeah, the girl's name's Ely. So a lot of this volume is devoted to an arc in which a young Choujin who was a star baseball player at his high school, becomes a Choujin, and his life does not improve. In fact, it declines drastically, and he has to become a criminal, a bank robber, to make ends meet. And he sort of loses it. And it's thanks to Tokyo and Ellie that he kind of comes out of it and makes reparations. And it was really fun. I really had a blast with these volumes. And I really love the artwork. Sui Ishida's artwork is fantastic. And then volume 3 is largely about a group of criminal Choujin tracking down Tokyo because they've been hired to kidnap him and deliver him to the individual who developed the serum that granted him his powers. And at the end, Tokyo's friend develops powers himself and goes on something of a rampage. Oh yeah, this was a blast. And then I read 3 volumes of YuYu Hakusho by Yoshihiro Togashi. This is an older series that was published in the early 90s. It's about a young man named Yusuke Urameshi who, in an act of bravery, saves a young boy's life from being run over, and he becomes a ghost. However, it was not Yusuke's time to die, so Yusuke's given a second chance to come back to life. And when he successfully accomplishes this, he is then appointed a spirit detective. His role is to monitor supernatural activity in Tokyo and make sure that demons don't act up and that sort of thing. His one of his first cases is to determine which of the prospective students of an old master named Genghis is actually a demon named Rando. And Yusuke successfully figures it out through process of elimination and defeats Rando, and himself becomes a student of Genghis. And then later, a classmate named Kurabara, who has psychic abilities, and 2 former demon criminals, Kurama and Hiei, are forced to team up to defeat a group of demons who are using sort of a zombie-making demon insect to turn humans into basically zombies in order to extort the underworld. And later, this team are forced to participate in a dark tournament by a group of evil humans and demons. And I had a blast. This was really fun. And I read volumes 4, 5, and 6. And then on Sunday, I read volume 3 of Twin Star Exorcists by Yoshiaki Sukeno. So this is a exorcism-based series. It's about 2 young people, Rokuro and Benio, who are fated to marry or are directed to marry so that their child would be this fated super exorcist. The only problem is that Rokuro was involved in an incident when he was younger that left him embittered and not all that enthusiastic about being an exorcist. However, his continued encounters with Kegare demons in the setting, in the presence of Benio, sort of draw him back in. And this arc goes into what happened, why Rokuro decided against being an exorcist, and why he's coming back, and how things aren't quite what they seem, and that there is kind of a malignant force out there that needs seeing to. And I really enjoyed it. It was a really good volume, and I really like the artwork. And the cliffhanger at the end was really makes me want to read the next 3 volumes, which I have. So, yeah. Next, I read the first 2 volumes of Gachiakuta by Kei Urana. This is volume 1, and this is volume 2. So, in this world, it begins with a world where that lives under an oppressive government, where the rich and powerful live on one side of the world and the poor live on the other. At the end of the world, there is a great pit where the trash is thrown, and criminals are executed by dropping them into the pit. Rudo is from the slums. He is one of the tribe folk, and he has become infamous for sneaking into garbage facilities to steal garbage that is still salvageable. A little fixing up, and they would be good as new. Rudo, his adoptive father is murdered, and he is blamed for it and is exiled. He is executed. However, instead of death, he winds up in a large landfill and discovers that the world that he knows is a world that floats up above another planet. It's basically like probably like an artificial habitat, sort of hovering over a larger planet, where the dump sites are basically have become toxic zones, and the people of the surface loathe the people of the sphere because of the fact that they basically dump garbage. And gradually, some of the garbage are affected by negative emotions and become trash beasts. And these trash beasts can only be killed by people who are known as givers, who have their connections to certain items that they possess imbues those items with magical abilities. And they kind of come together, or at least some of them come together as cleaners who are dedicated to defeating trash monsters, which Rudo luckily meets one when he first arrives on the surface, and decides to become a cleaner while keeping in mind his primary objective, which is to return home and wreak terrible vengeance on those who wronged him. And I really enjoyed these 2 volumes. The artwork is just amazing. Just and I quite like Rito's character. Um, it's really well done, and some of the other cleaners like Injin and Zanka. So that's Rudo. Oh yeah, so this was really fun. I'm in fact planning on adding more to this, or picking up more. So yeah, and so yeah, that was Blast. And then here's some from Volume 2. So yeah, that was fun. And then I concluded my manga reading this weekend with the first 3 volumes of Bleach by Tite Kubo. Volumes 1, 2, and 3. So Bleach is one of the most popular manga ever. It was a part of the big 3 from the 2000s and 2010s, alongside Naruto and One Piece. So Bleach is the story of Ichigo Kurosaki, who is a high school student in Karakura Town, as a neighborhood of Tokyo. Ichigo is notable for 2 things. One, his naturally strawberry blonde hair, and his ability to see and interact with ghosts, which he has had as a child. And when he was younger, he had difficulty differentiating the living from the dead. One day, while he's in his room, he sees a mysterious young woman. This woman is Rukia, a Shinigami, a Grim Reaper, whose duty it is to aid lingering ghosts to cross over into the afterlife, soul society, and to destroy hollows, lost souls who have become corrupted. There is a hollow trekking down, lurking around the Kurosaki residence, and Rukia is trying to find it. The hollow attacks, and Rukia tries to defend the family, and Ichigo tries to help out as well. Ichigo's assistance isn't necessarily the most helpful, and Rukia is injured. In order to destroy the hollow, Rukia transfers her power to Ichigo, transforming him into a Soul Reaper himself. And so while Rukia recovers, Ichigo must take on her duty as a Shinigami serving this part of Tokyo, whether he wants to or not. And over the course of these volumes, the cast is slowly introduced. Ichigo's classmates like Orihime and Chad, his relationship with his parents or his father, and his mother is deceased. And that's the subject of the third volume, which is amazing. And I had a lot of fun with this. This was really, really fun to revisit. I've had this volume of Bleach once before in the past, and I've had this volume in particular for a few years now, but I've never gotten around to actively collecting the series. I focus a bit more on Naruto. But yeah, so now that I've got Naruto completed, I'm looking forward to starting on Bleach. So yeah, so that was my manga reading for this past reading week. Now on to the work week. So my plan for the work week was to read Riders of the Purple Sage by Zane Grey for June on the Range. This is about a young woman who gets involved in some unfortunate events in Utah during the 1870s, and the hero, whoever he is, helps her out. I didn't last long. The description is pretty good, but the dialogue at the beginning, that dialogue is so not to my taste at all. So I bailed on it. However, I did do some bill redemptions. Starting with The End of the West by Michael Dickman, I acquired this collection alongside the first collection of his twin brother Matthew a few months ago, and had to go at it at the tail end of National Poetry Month in April, which I think is why I didn't quite get on with either collection at the time. I think it was poetryed out. But I came back to this collection on this past Tuesday, and I've really enjoyed it. Particularly the last poem, the title poem, The End of the West, is fantastic. I also bill redeemed Bite Hard by Justin Chin, which, again, I'm pretty sure at the time I was a bit tired of poetry. I needed to take a break. But I reread the collection. I read this collection, or I had this collection about 20 years ago, and remember it quite fondly, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to re-add it to my collection. And I enjoyed this reread. I actually rather liked the prose poems or prose pieces in the collection a lot more than I thought I would. But it's a nice collection, although I think perhaps I'm not as into as hardcore or as punkish queer poetics as I was when I was younger. If that makes any sense. And on yesterday, I dipped back into the Autumn House Anthology of Contemporary American Poetry, and I quite enjoyed it. I read, let's see if I can remember. So I read the Mormon selection, the W.S. Mormon selection, as well as the Dorian Lau, Lee Young Lee, Miriam Levine, Philip Levine, Ada Lemon, Anne-Marie Macari. I think that was it. So yeah, and I quite enjoyed that as well. So, on to what I will be reading this final week of June. So over the weekend, I'm planning on reading, or at least getting a start on, From Genghis Khan to Tamerlane by Peter Jackson. So this is a history of the Mongols that came out earlier this year that I'm looking forward to. And over the course of the coming work week and into this next weekend, if need be, I will finish up June with The Middle Kingdoms by Martyn Rady. This is a history of Eastern Europe that I've been meaning to get to for quite a while. So that's my reading plans for this coming reading week, and the beginnings, perhaps, of the the following reading week. As far as booktube videos are concerned, or my booktube plans for next week, I'm hoping to get to the mid-year freakout tag. I was going to do that today, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the time to look at the prompts and actually edit them so that some of the questions that I don't want to do or I don't have any interest in, I can just go ahead and delete them and add in prompts of my own if I want to. So, anyway, BookTube, look forward to that. And until I see you next week, thank you. Have a great evening and weekend, and stay safe.